Hello everybody and welcome back. I've been off for 2 weeks, but I'm now on a new computer, which also helped me fix my microphone. On this week's episode, how to play Frontline in D&D 2024 by myself. For the table of contents of this video, we will talk about what exactly is a frontliner, the frontliner classes, the primary, secondary, and tertiary classes, their abilities, go through the main ones, and their in-combat guide. So, what is a frontliner? Frontliner's main job is to brawl up in the front lines, given the name. They're pretty bulky, and they're trying to take the majority of the enemy's fire and dish out constant single target damage for the most part. They use their natural ability to sustain themselves up in the front line in the fight, to keep on being a menace. In this case, I define bulk as HP, HP regen, their AC, any resistances or immunity. Oh, healing, there we go. That's HP regen. I think damage is quite self-explanatory. It's normally single target for these classes, however, but it is potent. And then finally, taunting is gathering the enemy focus fire, so that your allies are protected, or being able to protect your allies from incoming damage, because there are some abilities that also do that instead. Some of the classes for the primary types are going to be Fighter. The Fighter has a very consistent damage for their extra attack and their subclass options. They come with heavy armor with a D10 hit die, second wind, and indomitable for incredible bulk. Their weapon masters also can control the battlefield alongside of their subclass features, giving them a good variety of taunting abilities. The Barbarian, they pose overwhelming offense with their rage, reckless attacks, and brutal strikes, along as a lot of other features that focus on damage, especially in their subclasses. They also bring the bulk with their D12 hit die, their rage reducing all slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning damage. Their unarmored defense being one of the better ones, going off of Constitution. Danger sense with dexterity saves, and relentless rage, and that list goes on as well. They also do access to weapon masters, a little bit less than the Fighter does, but a little more than others. And their brutal strikes can cause devastating cripple effects, with some limited subclasses giving them the feature to taunt. Monks are also now here. They're a lot better. They get to show strong physical damage with their punches, with their martial arts die, and using their focus points to use flurry of blows, or even deflect attacks. While they only have a D8 HP, which is the average, they're very good at dodge tanking, patient defense, deflect attacks, evasion, using that all as their form of bulk, not getting hit pretty much. They can also taunt enemies with their simple grapples to lock them down, or their stunning strikes to really lock them down. And then we have the Paladin. They deal an equal amount of damage, bulk, and taunt, and you could invest more into others' groups than you would, but you have to really sacrifice some. But in your built-in kit, you have, for spells, you have Divine Smite for damage, Divine Favor for damage, Compelled Duel for taunting, Shield of Faith for taunting, and just in general, any old healing spell will keep that bulk up. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Normally, if you're doing one thing, you're trading off the other, but you always have the option to do one or two of the three. In your base set, you do have Radiant Strikes and Abjure Foes. You do come with a heavy armor with a D10 hit die. You do come with Lay on Hands, and Aura of Protection is a classic Paladin ability, as well as Abjure Foes. Finally, I think this was enough to be considered a full frontliner, and that is specifically the Pact of the Blade Warlock with the Fiend Patron. The Pact of the Blade is focused on the martial weaponry, and it converts your charisma modifier to be your main attack stat for a weapon, And then Thirsting Blade will give you extra attack, and then Devour Blade will give you another extra attack. And then Life Trigger will keep up your sustain, and Eldritch Smite will allow you to do high burst damage with your spells, with your normal weapon attack. Fiend Patron also provides you with temporary HP upon enemy death. Or you're actually not even enemy death, it's now specified just enemy hitting 0, so you could knock him out unconscious if you want to. Luck for saving throws, Fiend Resistance 4 resistance, and then Hurl Through Hell. Not as good as it used to be, but it's still a good banish and get someone out of there. Now, secondary classes, these are more where they could do some frontlining, but they're not intended to do, they're not intended to solo the frontline. And that is Ranger. I think it has okay damage within melee range with its favorite enemy, Relentless Hunter, and Nature's Veil. They have medium armor, but they're dex-based class, so it goes up to a maximum of 17 without a shield. No, yeah, 17 without a shield. So the shield, I guess it would be 19. They have Tireless and Nature's Veil for their okay bulk in the front line. But their taunting ability is actually kind of better. They have a lot of battlefield control spells, and the weapon masteries on the weapons that they would use are a lot more control focused. So they have Ensnaring Strike, Entangle, Gust of Wind, Spiked Growth, Conjure Animals, Wind Wall, to all block off and manipulate the battlefield that way. We also have the War Domain Cleric. I already went over the Cleric in my last video, but this one provides extra attacks as a bonus action, and I think I go over a little bit here. It's extra attacks as a bonus action. They have the Old Butcher weapon back, that's not concentration, and they have a good mix of offensive and defensive on their spell list. And then the Cleric Life Domain is also a good example. This just provides extra bulk for your team, and because you are a healing target, you're like naturally going to be a taunting target for the enemies because they're going to want to take you out first. But we could be pretty tanky. And then we have Circle of the Moon Druid. The Circle forms gives you more temporary HP than the normal Druid forms, and your AC is way stronger, going off of your Wisdom plus your Dexterity. And was it Dexterity? It was something. It was Wisdom plus something. I don't remember what just yet. It was a lot tankier than the other version was, though. Well, in terms of the AC department, not in terms of the HP department. You have stronger melee hits with this subclass, and you do have a limited spell school. Starry Wisps, Cure Wounds, Moonbeam, Conjure Animals, Quantum Moonlight, Mass Cure Wounds. That'll help you out. Now we have Druid of the Sea. This one is okay in melee range. It's more sort of to back off enemies, but you can use Wrath of the Sea for that 50-foot knockback plus some damage, with its upgrades giving you a plus 5 feet, so it goes to 10 feet around you, like a normal aura would. You have fly speed, resistance to cold, lightning, thunder, and then finally you can manifest this around allies, so you can protect allies that way, which is pretty cool. But that's at the level 14 slot, I want to say. And we also have the Artificer, the armor. This has heavy armor. It has the armor modules that you could change from being more offensive to more tanky. And then there's the ranged one, but we're not going to go over that. It has extra attack for okay damage. It's got a lot of bulk, no matter what kit you're using, pretty much. It's just a nice mid-battle generalist, such as all these other secondary classes. And then the Battlesmith, which its Steel Defender is pretty much the main tank here. It too has extra attack. It's you have 2 decently bulky targets for the price of 1 class. It's pretty good for that. And then tertiary classes. These are classes that have some tanking ability in their kit, but unless further investment is made, I would not recommend playing these as frontliners. The Artificer, so it has con saves, that's good. It has medium armor, it's got shields, it's got replicate magical items to increase some of your defenses. Flash of Genius is good for saves, but that's about it from there. Clerics, so they do have Protector for the martial weapons and heavy armor, which is great. Their Channel Divinities are both good for this aspect. They have Blessed Strikes for their offense, and you can get a good curated offensive defensive spell list, like Spirit Guardians is a great example. Druid, they have the same thing as the Clerics, except instead they have the medium armor. They have Elemental Fury, just like the Radiant Blessed Strikes. They have okay frontline and defensive skills, but they're mostly... they've got a little bit better taunting stuff. Like, Conjure Emeralds is fine now, but it's not as good as Spirit Guardians. But then they have Spike Growth, which is great. And that'll slow down incoming enemies. And then College of Valor Bard. So they have competitive inspiration, turning your inspiration into your hit rate, which is good. They have access to martial weapons, which is great. And they have medium armor and shields. That's all they need. And they have the extra... It's just not enough. The Bard is already pretty backline, and it just doesn't do enough to bring it to the front, which is why I'm only going to put it in Tertiary. I don't think you'll last long. Oh, that was only a one of. Alright, so the abilities. I'm going to go over damage abilities first. So, weapon properties that most of these classes have access to, they're the good damage ones. Well, the damage ones are Cleave, which can use your weapon attack to hit a second creature with the weapon's die damage if it's right beside the other one. Graze, which even if you miss, you'll deal your normal damage minus the weapon die. And then Nick, which will allow you to make the bonus action attack as part of your main action. The good fighting style feats that you can pick up for this are Dueling, Great Weapon Master. The fighting style feats, this is not the normal feats. Dueling, which is the if you're one-handed, you get an extra +2. Great Weapon Fighting, you can't roll under a 3 with a heavy weapon. It's not very good. Used to be a reroll. Thrown Weapon Fighting, which again +2 for thrown weapons, and then Armored Fighting, which allows you to do a lot of the stuff that the monk does, the lockdown, and heavier punches. There is extra attack for most of the martials except for Rogue and Artificer. And yeah, there you go. Feats here are Dual Wielder. Fantastic feat. Fantastic feat if you know how to build around it. It's funny. Grappler is a nice lockdown one. Every monk is probably going to get Grappler. Polearm Master, it's been nerfed. It's still fine. And then Great Weapon Master is your go-to. It is your go-to for damage. As for the classes themselves, Rage will give you a +2 for all your weapon strength attacks, and it'll scale to +4 by the end game. Fighter gets extra attack 1, 2, and 3. So it's 4 extra attacks on your turn, and then Action Surge to do that again. Monks get their martial arts dice, starting from 1d6 and all the way scaling to a d12 by the end of the game. They're also dex-based punches, and they can grab or shove during the same attack, once per turn, I think. Flurry of Blows, both 1 and 2, will make it so you have a bonus attack that can deal 2 strikes, and then 3 once it becomes upgraded. And Unarmored Strikes... No, sorry, Armored Strikes is a bonus action, I just said that. And the Deflect attacks can use your focus points to redirect the attack back to the enemy. It uses 2 dice of martial arts die, which again will scale just like the normal die will. You're doing a lot of damage. You're doing a lot of damage with the monk now. And it's got a much smoother scaling curve. The paladin... I'm sorry. The paladin, its smites are going to give it the most burst damage. Their bonus action, you get 1 free smite a day, and they do 2d8 radiant damage, and add an extra d8 per target being undead or fiend. I forgot to mention that, or fiend. or with each level increase. Radiant Strikes, this comes around level 11. It just adds an extra d8 to all their melee weapon attacks as Radiant. So if you decided to forgo a shield and stick to actually the dual weapon style feat, and get a lot more attacks in, this will really come in handy. And then if you use that Nick property, you can open up your bonus action for the Smite. The more you know. And some good offensive spells from this list. There's any Smite spell, pretty much. That's the primary thing you want to do with them is damage. Some of them have a little bit more crowd control or bonus effects. Divine Favor will add a d4 to all your weapon attacks. Magical Weapon, change your weapon to be magical. I think it also allows it to deal force damage as well, I'm pretty sure. All magical weapons now have the option to do that in general. And then Crusader's Mantle will be Divine Favor, but for the whole party. Buffing, so good ones that help with your buff is toppling the enemy, which I guess it's a debuff, but it'll give you advantage in your melee range, and then Vexing will just give you advantage once after you hit. Good buffs, buffing style feats are archery, even though that's their archery, that's fine, I'll put it in here. Blind Fighting. And then for Paladin specifically, you have Blessed Warrior, which gives them access to Cleric, cantrips, and spell. I think, actually, maybe just cantrips. I think they have one spell, I'm not sure. And then for Ranger, Druidic Warrior, which is the same thing for Druid. Fey Touched allows you to be a teleporting little boy. And Shadow Touched gives you access to other spells. And then Speedy for just running around the battlefield, being unbothered by a lot of it's great. If you want to do hit and run tactics, get Speedy. So Barbarian, they have a reckless attack that'll give them advantage on all of their attack rolls, but the same thing will happen in reverse. Well, they will, all attack rolls against them will have advantage. Fighters can have access to Tactical Mind, which uses their second wind to overcome a failed ability check, and if they don't, it's not used. And then Action Surge, obviously giving them an extra action. That is also a huge buff they can give themselves. Monks can use a Step of the Wind, which is they can use one focus point to either disengage or dash as a bonus action, which will make them just again that run gun hit if they have a sticky situation. And they also have unarmed movement, which passively gives them plus 10 speed, scaling all the way to 30. Paladins get Faithful Steed. They can cast Find Steed once per day, and that's just a bonus 60 feet of movement. Even if you don't want to use it yourself, you can always give it to an ally. Great buff for there. And they have some good buff spell lists like Bless, Protection for Good and Evil, Lesser Restoration, and Remove Curse. Sustainability. The only property that I think helps with sustainability is Sap, which minuses the enemy's attacks. I forgot by how much. Heavy Armor provides you at the most with 18 AC, with it being normal for a full plate, and then with half plate it's 17 AC with +2 to Dexterity, and Shield will add a +2 to either. That's just you becoming the tankiest you could be. There's a defensive style which gives you +1 to AC as well. I think all the defensive feats all the sustainability feats are pretty good here. Heavy Armor Master will reduce incoming damage by your proficiency bonus if it's slashing, piercing, bludgeoning damage. And I'm going through Monster Manager right now, and even though there are elemental attacks coming at you for the most part, some of those melee swings are still dealing bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage, and then having the elemental be a separate damage check. But like, there's enough to actually still be blocking damage, much like a barbarian would, and much like this skill would. Inspiring Leader will give you a good amount of temp HP on it, and it's actually an okay feature to take. Mage Slayer will provide you with great offenses and defenses against any spellcaster. It might be a must pick for the late game. Resilience, just a nice proficiency to a saving throw you don't have. Always great. Same thing with Warcaster, but that's more for making those con saves. So classic sustainability is Barbarian's Rage. Has advantage on strength checks, resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. Their armor defense goes off of their constitution and dexterity. They have danger sense for advantage on dexterity saving throws. Fighter, second wind. As a bonus action, you can generate a d10 hit die plus your fighter level in HP. And then there's Indomitable, which basically becomes... legendary legendary resistance for the fighter. If you fail saving throw, you can reroll with a bonus to your fighter level. Again, that you get at level 9. So eventually, it's just a plus 20 on a d20 roll. There is like no way you fail any saves after that. It is legendary resistance on the fighter, and I love it. Monks have armor and defense, which is their dex plus their wisdom. Patient defense for a focus point will give them disengage and the dodge action, which is great on the bonus action. And then their deflect attacks will reduce equal to 10 plus their dexterity, modifier, and their monk level. So you can shut down a single attack and then redirect it back in the damage department. Paladins have Lay on Hands, which is a bonus action, and the level plus 5 worth of hit points. They can allocate as many as they need to. Or Protection adds your charisma bonus to all of your saving throws in a 10-foot radius. I should have mentioned it goes up to 30 feet at level 18. And then some good sustained spells are Bless, Cure Wounds, Heroism, Shield of Faith, Aid, Prayer, Healing, Lesser Restoration, and Aura of Vitality. Finally, Taunting. Weapon Mastery properties that do this are Slow, to slow down enemies approaching, or Push to get them off of your allies. Fighting Fire style feats is Interception, but the main one is Protection. That got a huge buff from being one of the worst feats, and now it just gives enemies disadvantage if you use your action to protect an ally. Great for taunting and being that frontline tank. The grappler feat is also good at shutting down, and then Sentinel's there. It's not as good as the old Weapon Mastery combo, but I don't think it's the one that got nerfed. I think Polearm Master's the one that got nerfed, but it doesn't work as well now, which is fine. It was not fun for a DM. Barbarians have reckless attack for taunting because of the stipulation that, again, all attacks against you are at advantage, so you're an easier target to hit, and you're the target that can soak up the most blows. Fighters have their weapon mastery options. They get 3, scaling all the way up to 6. They can change it out at the start of the day too, so they're pretty versatile. And then they also get access to tactical mastery, which always puts the push, sap, slow. Hey, here's slow, here's push, onto their weapons if they would rather use those techniques over the ones they're currently using, which you might not. Then there's the monk for the martial arts die. It's the grappling or shove that we're looking at that they can do once per turn, and then stunning strike to completely lock down an enemy. It is a con save, which they could save from. It's a pretty easy one to save from, but if they don't, they are stunned. And even if they do save, their speed is still halved, and your next attack roll does have advantage still. So that's great. And then Aura Protection. This is more of that defensive protection again. It's the same ability. I didn't put it in the buffs because I didn't put it in the buffs. I put it here in Taunting because I feel like that's what it's better for, even though technically it's all 3. So good taunting spells are command. You can command someone to get off your allies and retreat. Compel Duel, which to lock down a single target. It's a little bit of a... There's some problems with the spell. But it's fine. It's a level 1 spell. Heroism, Shield of Faith. These can go on allies, and the Warning Bond could protect an ally. And then having access to Revivify, you are still a problem. Because even if one of your allies dies, you can get them back up. And you are a lot harder to kill than most of them. And then there's the Forbidden Technique of Taunting, and that's just taunting the DM. to get them to attack you over your friends, and that works 100% of the time. 55% of the time, baby. Don't piss off your DM, but you could taunt him a little bit. You could. All right. Combat guide. So where to be outputting damage? I think your top priority is getting rid of those spellcasters. Either support or utility. I don't think it really matters. Those have got to go right away. They're going to be the biggest problem during your combat round. But most combats don't really have it. So I think taking out the most squishy frontliners is the way to go. This will be less incoming damage. Then you could be doing the big guy, and then finally any archery types or people who can fire at range. You can't really stop them. They kind of have normally global targeting over the battlefield. And what are you going to do? So yeah, go all out on spellcasters. Try to shut them down immediately at the start of the fight. But you can also be brawling up with the big guy. There's normally like a mini boss or even the boss who can take the punishment. So going all out won't be dumb. Like, it'll all be effective and you won't overkill them. So yeah, try to finish off weak enemies to increase your number advantage in the fight, and to also reduce oncoming damage because they're dead. So a good example of this would be a pack of wolves, and they have a dire wolf mini boss as their leader. Once the dire wolf no longer has access to pack tactics, their output damage is a lot less, especially since now that the wolves are dead. So that's a good example of going after little guys before dealing on the big guy. So when to buff. Some buffs should always be used constantly. Reckless attack. There's, the downsides, but your class is built around the downsides. And there's actions that you could use, like action surge, but you definitely want to use them before you take a short rest. So at least every 1 in every 2 fights you want to be using action surge, and then once you get your second action surge, you want to be using it at least once every fight. So yeah, using buffs that increase your longevity, or ones that shut down enemy, should be used like immediately. So if you're going to action surge, you might want to start at the start of the fight when you can just completely execute a single opponent, get their token off the battlefield immediately. But you can save it for, like, something like Step in the Wind, or just reposition yourself, maybe hang back, or to help an ally deal with an enemy flanking. So when to sustain yourself. Your hit point die is a resource. You only really need to heal when you need to. About half or 75% or 70% if you're kind of out of combat. You can use the resources like Lay on Hands, Second Wind, or any primary. Try to use these hero sources, like, unlike more flexible hero sources like spell slots, which could be used for other things. But these are like only used for healings, Lay on Hands, and Second Wind. Then there's also AC boosters and damage reducers that will also help you keep yourself up in the fight. In general, you want to be using all of your short rest resources, every, like, half of it or more than half of it every fight, like focus points, because they come back on the short rest completely. There's even a way for a monk to get them back at the start of a fight. So yeah, you can use those constantly. But other effects such as rage, which you start off with a good pool of, you can use it like once per fight, but I think, like, if you ever go down or you ever lose, you're able to stop, like, being incapacitated or unconscious, I wouldn't rage again unless you know you can probably get away with it, because it only comes back, only one of them comes back on a short rest, so you might be depleting them as the day goes on. And then finally, when to taunt, you always want to be taunting. You always want to be constantly getting focus, but you might not have to peel. And what peeling is when a player helps another teammate being attacked and overwhelmed, and you peel off the problem just like you would a banana. You still want to be the number one target for your opponents, but some of them will slip by, and your allies could have the ability to 1v1 or just drop a thumb, so it might not be a problem. Like, enemy spellcasters in your team could be able to Misty Step or use punishing melee focus spells, or even get away from me spells like Thunderclap. Wait, not Thunderclap. It was Thunderclap, wasn't it? I think it's Thunderclap. Or they just have an okay melee, like the Druid or Cleric would. So that's it. Like, comment, subscribe. Some of your opinions in the comments below. And then as soon as possible, I'm going through the monsters right now. And I will release that video when I'm done. I'm at about 100 so far out of like 520 monsters or something like that. So I've still got my work cut ahead of me. But I will be slowly working away on that. And then release the data when I'm done. I think if I go 100 per day, I think I'll bang it out by next week. And that video will be just for player knowledge and DM knowledge of just what are generally the better attacks, stats, like saving throws, attacks coming at you, the damage types. I don't want to give like too much behind the screen information, but I want to, like, in general, like right now, in general, I'm finding intelligence saving throws against enemies are really effective because a lot of them are not very intelligent. Stuff like that. So I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day.